Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Project Sovereign. Today, I have Timothy Shieff with me. Timothy is a free running world champion and American Ninja Warrior finalist. I've been following Tim's work now on Instagram and his new website for a while, and it's great to have him here to share his wisdom. So, Tim, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Alex. Thanks, everyone.
So,
hello, everyone listening.
In 30 years or so, Tim, you've probably done more in your life than a lot of people do in their entire life, in terms of achievement and probably introspective work as well. So before we get into some of the deeper topics, can you maybe tell us some of your history, how you got to where you are?
Yeah, sure. So just as I was born in Connecticut, USA, but when I was 2.5, I moved to the UK. Both my parents are British, from Derby, and so I was raised in Derby for all of my childhood from then on. From a young age, I was always fascinated with human movement. I just remember seeing breakdancing on the odd music video or something. I'd see it and be so fascinated. And back then, you couldn't just kind of rewind or pause like you can now. I just have to watch the music video channels and hope for those videos to come back on again. And I was always spinning on my knee and fascinated by Michael Jackson. And then I got into handstanding at home. I used to handstand at 10 years old. I was walking on my hands up and down the corridor. And then I finally got into breakdancing. I found actual class that I could go to. There was no gymnastics near me. I would have loved to have done gymnastics, but there's nothing I could do. So I went to breakdancing. And so for 3 or 4 years, I was just fascinated with what the human bodies could do. I was really inspired by all these other people and developed my own practice. Then when I was about 16, 17, I was working in McDonald's part-time at the time. And on my lunch break, or my evening break, I remember going into the room, the chill room for the staff on their breaks to chill out. And the TV was on, and there was a program called Jump London. And that was about parkour. And it's the first time I'd ever heard of parkour, first time I'd ever seen a parkour. And I was like, what the heck is that? And so I remember being checking, I think I checked to see that I could record it later that day or watch it tomorrow or something. So I stopped it because I didn't want to ruin it for myself. And then I went home and I watched that program, and it was the original parkour's a movement from France. And it was the original guys that kind of developed it. It had come to England and in London and jumped around London. Then they made a sequel a few years later called Jump Britain. And that really just sparked it was kind of like breakdancing to me, but on multiple planes. So the way the human body works is so divine, and for everything we can do from, just walking and running to these completely complex movements, and yet people can land on the balls of their feet after so many twists on solid concrete ground from, 2 or 3 meters in the air and be completely fine. The body can absorb that. And it was just something in it really, it wasn't as complicated thinking of the physics in my head, but it's something that's awe-inspiring to see. And so I kind of developed this love of parkour and moved away from breakdancing into parkour. I ended up competing in the first ever World Championships, and there was 3 Brits competing, and I was kind of the underdog of the Brits, and I ended up coming second overall behind an American and kind of winning out the Brits and coming second out of complete surprise. And subsequently the next year, because I think my practice in breakdancing competitions, I had an awareness of how to, when there's judges and things. The next year I came back and won the World Championships, and that was in 2009 in Trafalgar Square. That was on the BBC. They gave out free tickets. There was 8,000 people all around Trafalgar Square. It was a really cool event. And that was, 2009 I won that. But I will get into it a bit more esoterically, but even at the time winning that stuff, it never felt the satisfaction that you think someone might feel from winning. It's cool, but it wasn't right, I've made it now. I feel like I woke up the next day I can take a week off or something. I've never had that feeling from any achievements that are the mainstream narrative of what you think is an achievement. That's not where achievements for me or anything I'm necessarily, they're not the proudest moments of my life, as most people might, put them down as these are the trophies I've won or something. It's never felt like that for me. But and that was the free running. And then I kind of faded away from free running a bit. But Ninja Warrior came about, and I got asked to go and compete in the American Ninja Warrior because I had the citizenship from being born there. Went and competed on the American one. Didn't do so well first year, but I wanted to go back. I got a shoe sponsor to fly me over, and it's it's kind of a long way to fly all the way to America to just, if you fall after 1 minute, you know, you've flown all that way, and anything could happen on Ninja Warrior. But I ended up doing quite well. I won my heats in Miami, and I ended up winning a little bit of prize money there, going to the finals in Vegas. I competed in the finals in Vegas twice as a normal American competitor, and then they flew me back 2 more years after that to compete as the captain of Team Europe, and as the European team, and we won that the first year I competed in that, and so that was my Ninja Warrior. In the UK, I competed as well, and I managed to get the furthest in 3 different seasons in the UK. So fair bit of sporting, kind of fringe sports, you know, kind of bit of accolades in that, but alas, as we'll get into, none of it is truly ever satisfied my soul.
So you mentioned there about the body. I think the phrase you used was "the body is divine." I think that was the phrase that you used. How do you?
Yeah, divinely designed in a way. Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting into God already, but because you moved into the veganism movement, and that sort of put you on the map a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I became vegan in around 2012, having watched Gary Yourofsky's speech, understanding it from a very I was never understood how animals were killed and the way we used them, and once he made me sort of see that it wasn't necessary to my beliefs at that point, I thought, why are we doing it then? And so I became vegan, very passionate, very outspoken. That community welcomed me with open arms and kind of, you know, put me on a pedestal a bit. And it was an important chapter of my life to become vegan and to enter that movement. And then, a few years later, I started, I don't want to go too deep into that as a whole podcast in itself, but I didn't feel as good. I did a load of experiments and tested a load of different things within veganism. Nothing kind of felt like it scratched the itch until I ate an animal product, and then that felt like it scratched an itch of something that was in me. There was something missing from my nutrition, and that changed something for me. Now there's so many ways of looking at every single thing, but for the time being, that became my belief that it was a necessity to eat animal products, and so I started eating animal products, and I've started to get, you know, go from strength to strength with my health again. But yeah, it's a very fascinating subject. Nutrition is really interesting, and there's so many trains of thought with it.
Yeah, I've been on that journey myself. I've been vegetarian, vegan, fruitarian, tried not eating anything and doing the breatharian or whatever you label that. I've been down all that path. And about 12 months ago, I thought, you know what? I need to drop all this. I need to drop all my belief systems, everything I've picked up over the last 10 years, and just feel my body and actually go into it. And Wilhelm Reich, the psychologist, believes that the unconscious mind actually plays itself out through the physical body. And my mind I couldn't focus properly when I was trying to create in the world, when I was writing articles and doing podcasting. I couldn't think properly. And as soon as I ate some chicken, it was as if I dropped everything that I had picked up. It had just gone. All the baggage that I had just been dropped. And it was more of a mental, psychological thing than it was a physical thing to begin with. And then I ended up being a lot stronger in the gym. I could run faster, I could run longer. And it was like, you know what? Although it played a fantastic part of my evolution at the time, it's now time to progress and transcend that part of my life. That's what it come across to me. Is that a similar thought patterns to yourself?
Yeah, that's exactly the way I'd experienced it. And that's not to say that we can't revisit it with a new awareness. And as you said there, the William Wright quote about the subconscious plays out, I very much was to that belief that that's what was happening, was like there was a lot of things being played out in the physical. And yeah, I've kind of grown in my awareness of that now through teachings I've been studying, but that the subconscious is kind of actually the soul, and the soul is what dominates even if we can have the intellectual understanding of what we're controlling, the soul is behind that, which you can call subconscious if you want, dominating our reality and what we're giving off and what we're receiving through the universe or whatever. And so, yeah, the vegan journey was an important chapter of just you have to be really observant and diligent in this life with everything you're changing, every bit of feedback you're getting, to be as aware as you can. And diet is a massive one for all humans. I think they should explore it in whichever way, and whatever results they get, that's good for them.
Mm, mm. And how would you describe, if you can, I know it's difficult, but how would you describe your relationship to nature?
It's something that I only really got into when I started running around 2012, 2013. I wanted to do obstacle races, so I started running because I could do the obstacles fine. It's like if I could run faster, I could do better competitively. But then through the practice of running, I got into running on trails, and through that, I just started loving just hiking in mountains and just looking at a mountain top like Snowdon or something, in England, in Wales, and looking how big it is, and then knowing that in an hour and a half, 2 hours, I can be on top of that, and then just one step at a time, 1 foot in front of the other, you can be on top of that. And I think nature is so much to teach us in that sense, and that it's just taking that first step, right? And just it's that steady chipping away, and that you can move a mountain in a sense. You move yourself over the mountain, but it kind of moves the mountain. And to more recent times, when now I'm going for like cold swims in rivers, and it just really resets me. It takes my mind away from it just forces you to be present when you're in nature. And if you go for walks, you go wild camping, you go for multiple day hikes, you can walk national trails with a bivvy and your back and some food and a stove, and it just helps you to just really recognize what is actually essential to survival, because we don't know when we live in a house and we've got a kitchen and a bathroom and a living room. It's like, do you know what you can put into a bag that is essential? Because most people don't know what they can until you go out and spend 2 days, 3 days, 2 nights in nature. Then you know what is essential for your life, and just having that awareness. And then you look at the animals in nature and you go, they have nothing. We have to carry this heavy bag that weighs half my body weight, around this place. A bit less than that, and these animals carry nothing. I was just looking at swans in the pond and deer, and they know everything in the wild. The way their perspective of when you go for a walk through the forest and we just see tree, like leaves, wood, dirt, grass, and it's like that's what most humans see: leaves, wood, dirt, grass. And it's like they have so much. If you ever have done psychedelics and gone out and you realize you see there's so much more to be perceptive of, and so the more time you spend in there, you can study it if you want, or the more connection you have to the divine, or however you see it, you get downloads of knowledge of kind of the environment a bit more. And as humans, we love to label things and study and pass things down through generations. But I really believe there's a different way to access that information. But for now, just spending time walking in nature with friends. But I do think it's incredibly important to go out on your own into nature. I think so many people, we have so many distractions, and we use humans as distractions. And if people could go out in a walk on their own with no music, no headphones, just themselves and their thoughts, and that in itself naturally becomes a prayer. The way you feel in that environment. Once you become comfortable there, once you get over, a lot of people might take some getting over. I wish someone was with me. Let's just hurry up and get this done. It's like eventually you realize how peaceful it all is, and how nature is never rushing anything. And I think there's so much to take from it.
I think you mentioned divine again now. I think it's like a divine masculine trait, because I think we're living in like a hyper feminized society that has lost all that connection with Mother Earth, which is the feminine entity, and we've missed that like masculine connection with it. So this is why, in my opinion, there's that much psychological issues out in the world, because people need to be mothered. Help me. It's like all this COVID stuff that's going on at the moment. A lot of it seems to be, I need the government to look after me, or I need this to look after me. I can't go out in nature and look after myself. So I find like walking in nature, no music, just taking a rucksack, as you say, to me, that's a divine masculine trait that has gone missing since probably before monotheistic Abrahamic religion, to be fair.
I completely agree. I completely agree. There's just something in that, and it's things like ADD not ADD, more like OCD or something like that, where people have hyper attention to detail in their surroundings. But if you're in a box environment where you just got light switches and taps, it's like my mind needs something to delve into. Whereas if you do go camping and you take in your bag, you have to be alert and you have to be aware of like the weight of things, and you have to be aware of how much gas you use in your canister. And when you put your tent up, you want it to be neat and be pulled evenly. And it's like I feel like that's our mind is just bored. It's got so much more capacity to absorb the environment and to carry us through day to day, and yet it's put in this box environment where we're thinking about year to year. How can I pay my bills when the tax comes at the end of the year, rather than what have I got to focus on today to sort this meal, to make sure I'm warm tonight? What have I got to do? We've lost all of that, and I think, like you say, a lot has lost in society, and it becomes by like the government and everything, rather than the personal responsibility which we all have. But there is, I think it's equal parts both ways. I think like we have been mothered, but not necessarily in a mothers can be overbearing, you know. It's not like the mother who allows the bird to fly the nest and like encourages them to go off. So it's like we're missing both masculine and feminine at this accentuated version. And I think the way to put it, some people call it, is the shadow masculine, the shadow feminine is what we're seeing most of at the moment.
Completely agree. Tim, I've seen you're quite active in the, how would you describe it? Not marching, but the protests. I got to say, those pictures with the mask just covering your bits as you're walking down, I think it might have been Oxford Street. That was just magnificent, man. So I'll take my hat off to you there. Why have you felt the need to like get involved in that?
I think that's a good question that I've been asking myself a lot. and my viewpoint, my reasoning has changed as I've sort of delved into deeper awareness of what I'm knowing myself a bit more as I've gone. Essentially, it comes out of frustration. It comes out of frustration that everyone we've got this Stockholm syndrome of a nation where everyone relies on, like you said, they're relying on the government so much, and they're actually defending the government as though they know what's best. And it's quite clear to people who have done any sort of holistic practices, taken care of their own health at any point in their life, they've looked at their own nutrition and how to be healthy personally, that the advice that we're given is really not actually accurate, and actually it's quite damning. It's actually quite backwards. We're running away from something rather than, if there is a health crisis, right, which, okay, there was a health crisis before COVID, let's be honest. There was unnecessary deaths before COVID. Okay, so if COVID is real, if there is this virus that they say it is, okay, it's a health crisis. Oh, some people are more susceptible to dying from COVID than others because they're less healthy, because they're more at risk. Okay, so why isn't the solution, how do we become more healthy? That's not one thing that they've done, is how we can become more healthy. All they've done is let's avoid and afraid and cover ourselves up and avoid each other. And it's completely running away from the truth. And that's what most of it is, a denial of the truth of how health works and how we should react to something like this. And it's a very cowardly reaction. And that has sparked within me a lot of frustration. So I had to, when they made the mandatory masks rule in the UK, that was a step too far for me, a step too far from God and the way we've been designed. God has laws in place, and these laws, you can respect them or not, and whether you wear a mask or not, if you have been lived out of alignment with the laws and out of alignment with harmony of love to yourself, and you've got some addictions, and this isn't judgment on anyone, we've all got it, but if you smoke a lot, you eat a lot of fast food, you eat a lot of junk food, God bless you, that comes from a trauma that you've got to heal inside yourself, an emotion that you're trying to cover with this addiction. And our bodies express, like you said, our bodies show on the surface all the truth of our soul. It reads it out. And so if we looked at each other naked, and we were naked the way we were born, we'd be a lot more honest with ourselves about our health and where we're at. And so that image for me was just me showing, look, we're born naked, and look how stupid this mask is. It's not the solution. It's not helping nothing. If people are going to die, they're going to die. It's their day. We've all got a day, and you know, and a mask isn't going to change that. A mask isn't the solution to that. And so, and you could go deep down, you know, the conspiratorial route, which I completely see that as a massive option of, it's a muzzle, and they're all laughing behind the scenes or whatever. And that may be the case. You know, they've got us to wear a mask and conform, and we're sheep and we're slaves to them. And the way we're acting, we kind of act in awe. Yeah. And so for me, I had to attend protest. I had to make my statement and then to attend protest. Now, as I've gone deeper into it, and I went to one the other day in Bristol, and I was asked to talk, and I got there, and anyone with a speaker, a megaphone, was getting arrested or getting jumped on by the police.
Wow.
And everyone, all the protesters were just shouting shame, shame at the police, and they were really angry and aggressive. And I'm coming to a place now where I've tried to reflect everything on me. Why am I angry at them? Why am I angry at the police? Is there something in myself, and this is what some of the teachings I'm learning now, is there's something within me that is triggered by this, that I need to release. And my law of attraction is bringing this event into my awareness, and it's also helping bring it into existence because of an emotion that is unhealed in me. And unless I focus on and healing that emotion that's bringing the anger, this isn't going to change. So there's a really powerful time right now where everyone on every side is getting triggered. And being triggered is a great thing. Being triggered highlights to us where we're emotional and where we need to heal. Whereas so far, when we get triggered, we focus on projecting the anger on the other person. You triggered me, you need to change your ways. Rather than going, you triggered me, great, how can I learn from this trigger? Oh man, that really hurt when you disagreed with me. Oh, well maybe I've got a problem with other people not believing the same thing as me, and I need to look at myself and reflect there. So now at this point, I've been to a lot of process. I've joined in, and I gave a speech when it was quite divisive and saying, we need to make them do this, and us versus them. Now being able to see myself has been great because I can reflect on that and go, you know what, that wasn't very loving. That wasn't actually like loving, and it wasn't promoting togetherness and how we can do it. So it was, now I'm using it as reflection and going to these protests and sort of just being a witness, bearing witness to both sides, the police who don't know what they're doing and who they're serving, and to the protesters who actually just want someone to blame, whereas they, rather than taking responsibility of their own lives, they're all not, again, no judgment. There's so many of them are there just smoking rollies and eating crisps and stuff, and it's like, okay, let's sort, as Jesus said in the Bible, right? Sort remove the log from your own eye before you remove the sty from someone else's. And I think that is a very true statement to focus on right now, is how can I grow? And like I said, the law of attraction is one of God's laws. Most people use it to try and get rich or to get fit, rather than actually recognizing that on a more depth level of awareness of the law of attraction is you're bringing about scenarios. Your soul is calling about scenarios in your life that bring about emotional responses from you to help you deal with that emotion. Like and so many of us don't look. That was new to me when I learned that this year from Divine Truth, which is what I've been studying. And now I recognize that's how it's playing out, and it's a chance for us all to start to recognize it. And as truth seekers, I'm a truth seeker. You're a truth seeker. The hardest truth and the hardest pill to swallow is personal truth. And that's just straight up. It's the truth about ourselves. It's easy to go, you're unfair to you, right? It's easy to recognize when two people are unfair to each other. It's easy to recognize if you're unfair to me, oh, you did that to me, that's unfair. It's a little harder to recognize when we're unfair to ourselves and we're unloving to ourselves. Oh, it's okay that I eat this chocolate cake because I've had a tough day. But it's in a way, it's not loving, right? Then the hardest thing to recognize is when we're unloving to others. And to say, like Jesus said, turn the other cheek, it's the same thing. Just because someone is unloving to you, it doesn't give you a right to be unloving back. An eye for an eye turns the whole world blind. And as so many of us are frustrated because we feel we're awake or more conscious and we see what's going on and others don't, that doesn't mean that we have to focus on changing them or waking them up. The focus is on we can still grow. As we grow, that might help them to grow. Our growth is to be more loving, and then maybe in us being more loving, they will understand and listen to us. If we're just in this, we're backing back from this perspective, it's not helping anyone. So it's like, rather, every boss is harder than the last boss. So it felt like that boss, I recognize what went on with the whole Epstein and what's Biden and I think Sasha was on your show dropping all that knowledge. And, we recognize that was a tough boss. That was a tough pill to swallow, but the next boss is even harder, and that's personal truth. And I think that's where we all need to start for us to keep growing. Yeah,
man. Completely buy that. It's wonderfully said. I struggle myself with, if you use the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, with Arjuna, and Krishna is like telling Arjuna to do his duty. And I struggle in my mind, which is the problem. But I struggle sometimes going, where do we draw the line and actually stand up to tyranny? Mm-hmm. And the other side of the coin being, okay, let's be more loving and let's understand that side of the coin, because I genuinely do understand that. 10 years ago, I'd have probably been involved in, like, I'd have been, the police are doing a great job and whatever else. Now I look at the other side of the coin and like a way that both sides up, you know. Yeah. But I'm in a battle with myself, probably hourly, to be fair, overthinking these things. Mm-hmm. Would you suggest maybe just, you know, becoming objective, taking a step back? And as Carl Jung said, the collective unconscious plays itself out. It's like, that's another God's law, that the unconscious just plays itself out, whether we like to believe it does or not. The collective consciousness is our experience coming back at us. So would you suggest like becoming objective to the whole scenario, or would you suggest standing up for what you believe in, but doing it with a degree of understanding?
I think that's an absolutely great question. And that is what I've been asking myself all this year as well, since the start of COVID, is where is the line of standing up and fighting back and defending my right and actually, or just, do I just surrender to everything that's going on? Like, so there's power in surrender as well, right? So where I'm at the moment with it is to recognize that it is unloving. Is my response unloving? But also, if they're being unloving to me, to say that, you know, to state that, to state, no, what you're doing, that action, trying to make me wear a mask, is unloving that you expect me to do that. To put a vaccine in me, a needle, you know, I will stand the line and I will say, no, you know, put me in prison, whatever, you're not doing that to me, like whatever the line is. So you do have to stand up, but there's a loving and there's a loving way to do it where you're just stating it, and you can be stern and still be loving, you know what I mean? And it's just to recognize that it is a very important question, and it's a tough one to break down. But there is, with what's going on right now, it's making us think about it at least, and I have faith that we'll get clarity on the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's like, you know, when you put water through a sieve and the water falls through and the shit that's left in the sieve is like, I think that's what's coming up. It's actually one of the best things that's ever happened for humanity at the moment, because there's that many people now questioning what's going on, rather than just, you know, going to work 9 to 5 and whatever else, going home, eating shit and then going to sleep. It's like, oh, you know, there's a different reality here to what we've been told. So I think it's one of the best things that's ever happened to us. I think there's holistic health. I don't think there's ever been a better business to be involved with than a holistic well-being now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's cool. I think that's a great analogy with the sieve, and it's just helping everything rise to the surface. It's what we need. It's what we all need right now. We're all asking for healing, and we're all on this path of truth seeking and asking for healing. So we can't be surprised with what's happening with the times. So it's come up, and then we've just got to self-reflect as much as possible. Go into our history, go into your personal history and the roots of these emotions, which many of them, truthfully, are from. They're carrying out played law of attraction, as I said, from our childhood, from the way our parents might have restricted us, or the parents casting authority and trying to inhibit our own free will and our own choices and enforce their rules on us. So a lot of this is a reflection of that period. We have this kind of hangover from then, and this to authority and to law, and so we want to fight against it. But we have to recognize that this emotional anger and fighting back is from my own childhood when I was limited then. And so you said, yeah, the difference is, here's the key difference is, what you said, just step back and be objective to it. Now, it's one thing to intellectually understand this all and to say, you know what, I will stand back, and that's kind of like a Buddhist approach. But we actually, in a way, you're not respecting your emotions and what is happening there. If you can emotionally feel out the scenario without acting on it or reacting, but just take it personally and just feel it out, then you can release the emotion and release it from your soul, and then it will stop attracting it in. So it's one thing to intellectually remove yourself. It's another thing to emotionally just let it happen and then surrender to the emotion, and that will remove it for good. Otherwise, you're just focusing on the effect of the injury and not the actual cause of the injury.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does completely. Do you know Dr. David Hawkins?
Yeah.
his book Letting Go, he talks a lot about that, suppressed emotions that have been stored and how to release them. Spiritually, is there any like philosophies at the moment that you're really into at this period of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one that I came into about a year ago called Divine Truth. And anyone who's a truth seeker, who's open-minded, I would 100% recommend go out, check out their YouTube, Divine Truth. They've only got about 9,000 subscribers. They're in Australia. It's quite, you have to have done a certain level of self-work to be able to listen, because the guy believes he's Jesus reincarnated. And so for me, there's a lot of people claiming that, and I'm aware of that. And so when I listened to it, I was like, okay, yeah, I've heard that before, but what is he saying? What is he teaching? And if you listen to the teachings, which they call divine truth, which is, you know, as it pertains to God, the truth as it pertains to God. There is no his truth, her truth, your truth. There's an absolute truth as God created, and we either believe it or not, but his truth, God's truth won't bend to our beliefs. You can believe what you want, but so the more you can just align yourself with the absolute truth, whatever that breaks down in your own belief systems and you have to go through, is what it does. But so he's teaching these simple teachings that children can understand, because it's not about following the Bible, it's not about following a book written by men. It's all within our heart, it's in our soul, and it's that everything. The soul is the overriding system. Then we have a spirit body and we have a physical body, right? And it goes into all of this. It helps to understand the afterlife, how the spirit works, how spirits overcloak us humans. And so when we have addictions, there's often spirits around us that are encouraging us, dropping ideas in our head, because they're earthbound spirits who can't live through the physical anymore, so they live vicariously through us, encouraging us to carry out their addictions, and they use our emotional injuries as hooks to help control us. So we have to heal the emotional injuries to remove these spirit entities that are, you know, and there's so many avenues he goes down, but into God's laws, the truths around us, how to heal. And it's nothing that a child couldn't understand. It's nothing that couldn't be explained. It's nothing that a child can't already do. They know how to feel their emotions. It's us as adults that have become resistant to feeling our emotions, that we need to kind of go back to that childlike state. As he said, you must be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself fundamentally introverted?
As in, I like to spend time by myself. I wouldn't say fundamentally introverted. No, I think I recognize the madness of the world and a lot of people, and so therefore I do spend a lot of time by myself. But I do have friendship. Like, I moved to Bristol just under a year ago, because I had friends here and I wanted to kind of have a tribe. And so we meet up every Saturday, kind of as a little collective, and have some food. Nice. And we go for walks together. So I'm kind of 50-50. I think it's so important to be okay to spend time alone and get comfortable with loneliness until that leaves you, you know, or even the relationship to God makes you feel less lonely. So working on that is a powerful thing. But yeah, introverted to some degree, but not fundamentally.
The only reason I ask is, I mean, I consider myself relatively introverted in comparison to the majority of the extroverted world, which I believe is actually pushed that way to stop people actually going into themselves and healing themselves. But psychologically, the world is, it seems, psychologically, the world's in a complete and utter mess. There's never been more psychologists and psychiatrists than right now. And yet the label mental health is through the roof. What practices do you do that you'd suggest to the people listening here that can bring yourself, you know, into your own healing processes?
The truth will set you free. Often things like depression or a denial, a resistance to an emotion. I think we really are quite unemotional as adults, because at some point in our childhood, in our teenage years, through school, people made fun of us for being emotional, and so we learned to bottle it up. We learned to stop it, and we are emotional beings before almost anything else. So I realized that I was kind of blocked emotionally from sadness or happiness, either way. But what we use is we block our emotions, and then we use chemicals to feel happiness. But then we know behind the surface we're not truly happy. Then that's where this mental health comes from, because we're numb emotionally. So if we avoid sadness at all costs, which means that when you stop that, it stops happiness as well. You know, people take painkillers, or as soon as they feel an emotion, they eat some food or they smoke or something, and it's like boom, they use that habit to cover up the emotion. So we're not either way. And then the way we get happy is we use food, drugs and alcohol to, you know, numb it or whatever. Addictions like sport, like a sporting event is on, or sports ourselves. We go to the gym, we run, we sweat, and we release dopamine around the body. So we're playing with our own chemistry all the time. Whereas a child doesn't need to run for 5 miles. You know, they don't need to eat that thing, although, you know, they can quite at a young age get addicted to sugary food from our own fault. But they don't need to watch sport. That they're just naturally in a state of emotions where they can flow from sad and happy, and they just they live in this wave constantly, this ocean of emotion. Now we've removed ourselves from that ocean, and then we just get happy through these chemical means, through sensual pleasures, through sex as well. Sorry, I forgot that big one as well. So we have to stop numbing ourselves and live in the truth. And this is why I say personal truth is what will free us all, is the personal truth of our emotions. If you are sad, be honest about that, like with yourself and with God. You know, pray on that and try to cry, whatever you need to feel about it. But often depression, they say it's like a denial of anger, of rage. So people are angry at their parents, they're angry at the world or something, but they become like introverted and they don't want to express that anger or be seen as angry. So then they're bottled up and then they get depressed. Rather than go onto your bed and just beating the shit out of your bed, your pillow, a punching bag, until that anger is expressed, and then below the anger is the sadness, and then you end up in a ball of tears on the bed or something like that. So it's scientific, it's calculated. There's patterns at play here, but most people they're looking in religions, they're looking in New Age movements or they're looking to doctors and the mainstream, whereas this stuff is in our hearts and it's in our nature, written there by God, and we just need to understand its simple principles and then the hard work of getting through it, and that is facing the personal truth of our own emotions.
Nice. So you've used the word God a few times now, so you must know what it is.
The Most High, an entity that created us. We are children of God. That is male or female. It's genderless in a way. It's both genders, but it's an entity that you can have a personal relationship with, that you can get to know personally, that God can get to know you personally and wants to know you personally. And there's an itch we all have in life, or a hole you can call it, in our hearts, that we all feel. I watch so much YouTubers and sports stars, and Lewis Hamilton just won another championship. You know, are the Nadal wins the tennis, or Djokovic, it's like, are these people any happier? We're just moving laterally. Yeah. We're moving laterally, right? And we want to progress. We want to progress spiritually. We want to progress in our soul. Yeah. And there's a hole in your heart, and that God is the key to that hole, that when you start to work on that relationship, you start to, and this is, again, a lot of what I'm sharing is what I've learned from divine truth and what I've experimented with. This is for people to experiment with themselves and see what results they get. Prayer is not about the words you say. It's not about the thoughts you think. Prayer is about the longing and the energy and emotion in your heart for God. And that intention, this is the divine love path. This is the difference between natural love, which we all have, a man for another man, a woman for another woman. You know, we have this natural love within us. Then there's the divine love, which is love that comes from God. And until she's so respectful that he does not force it on us. It's on us to go, you know what? I'm ready for that. I desire that. I desire your love, God. Whoever created my soul. Because often in the movements we're around us, people think we are gods. I am God. It's like, I can't create a tree. I can't create this world. You know, I could create a baby, but God made the baby's soul. God made the materials, and to make the baby, God made me to, you know, God's created this and is there for us to have a relationship with. But it's hard for us when, like you said, 10 years ago, you couldn't have comprehended that the government didn't have our best interests at heart. You know, as you raise in truth and awareness, new things just become obvious. New things become obvious, right? So this is part of that, is that taking that leap of faith, recognizing that there's something missing in us, and you have a partner who you have love for the partner. There's still love for God. There's still a space for that. There's an itch that Hamilton will never scratch with all the Grand Prix in the world. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We're moving laterally. I've gone from sport to sport to sport. Look at me, I've gone laterally. There's something that's missing, and for me, what I'm coming to terms with and to recognize is that is a relationship to God.
So would you say that, because there's a new age type of belief that everything is God, including ourselves, we're the manifestors of all of creation. Would you sign up to that, or would you say it's separate from us? It as in God.
So I've had that thought and that belief before, but that came from plant medicines and things like that started. But it was never a pure thought. It was always just a nice idea. God is a separate entity in my awareness. He created the world that we exist, the earth, designed the trees, designed the animals, designed our soul, designed the human body in all its divinity. So we are creations, and there's an essence of God within us, in the sense there's a spark of Him in our soul that we can draw on and grow. But to say that we are God, I am God, or the world is God, or is this omnipresent existence is not the way I see it anymore. And I see it as a separate entity who we can know as we grow in truth. We can know better, and He knows us and wants that relationship, but it's waiting for us to make that step. Because if someone's ringing you all the time, let's hang out, let's do this, that's annoying. That's not love. You're like, but if they're like, you want to meet, like, if it's a more natural approach of like mutual friends coming together, you got that brother that you don't see for a year, and when you see him, you don't say, "Where have you been for a year? Why?" You're like, "It's good to see you, my man." Like it's a real humble, loving relationship, and that's the difference here.
Beautiful, yeah. I simply don't know, mate. So I'm more or less open to just listen to everything and get what feels right, sit in contemplation with it. You mentioned psychedelics. Ayahuasca, peyote, all this type of stuff. Have you experienced all of them, or what haven't you?
Done ayahuasca twice, 3 times. Peyote once, mushrooms multiple times. I've done heroic trip twice, I think, with mushrooms. Marijuana I smoked for many years, but now I'm coming to I realize that a lot of it was kind of fun and games and gave you a new experience. But again, it all felt very, you get this new belief, oh, I've solved it now, I just need to do this in my life, or this and that, and then a month later it's all the same. None of it was as it was an important chapter, and it unlocked things in my mind and helped me to access new perspectives. But it got to a point in my life when it became, again, just it was moving up for a bit, and then it became lateral. And we have to recognize when we stop moving with it, and when it's just kind of an addiction or a nice habit, or we've got friendships that it's the glue between our friendships, because then it's not really a full friendship, So now I feel like I'm trying to live in more humility and look at as children for inspiration. And they don't need any of that. I've got friends that have never touched it, and they're a high vibe. They're moving. Their brains firing really well. And it's been a few months now when I've not touched anything, and I'm going to continue to explore with nothing. I'm going to try and do all of 2021. No alcohol, no weed, no mushrooms, no ayahuasca, and see if I feel different after a good stint without it, to revisit everything again.
Do you consider them spirits, or do you just consider them tools, if you like, or both?
Kind of both. I consider them tools that help you access certain realms in a way. I kind of looked at them like your body is the PlayStation and they are the cartridge of the game. So it's like you can put the mushrooms in and then you enter that world. You can put the ayahuasca in and it's slightly more feminine and loving, but I really start to recognize now that it does open you up to spirits, and because you're not quite fully in your sovereign when you're under the influence, right? You're under the influence. There can be spirits that can then come in and want to influence you more, and so I'm being a bit more cautious with that. And I heard it, but I was like, yeah, maybe not, and I allow myself. I think we are free in this world to experiment to a certain degree with things to get awareness. But as I think it was it Terence McKenna said, when you get the message, hang up the phone.
Yeah.
And I feel like I got the message from it now, so I'm hanging up.
Nice. And I consider like spiritual growth in particular like a spiral. So the majority of what I tend to find in myself is that if you imagine a circle and then like lift it up, I don't know how to explain it properly, but it creates a spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And that upward motion is quite short for myself. And then it takes a full circle to integrate. And then it's like, right, you're ready, boom. And then you go up again. And then it takes another year or two. And then you're back up again. And then, so that's just the way it seems to ascend in my experience. Do you find that similar when I use that as an analogy? Is that something that resonates with you?
Absolutely, my friend. Have you heard of spiral dynamics?
Yeah, I love spiral dynamics. Yeah. I've written 5 or 6 articles on it, doing each individual level. Yeah, on my website.
Yeah, good man. That totally resonated with me. And it's the way that truth kind of spirals, because, you know, I ate meat, then I went vegan, then I went back to meat, but it was with more awareness than there. But that doesn't mean that if it's going to continue, I might be vegan or breatharian. I still believe breatharian is possible, but it has to be approached in harmony with love, and certain things I feel have to be in place before that's a possibility. You can't just cut food and you're fine. Like, I think there's real stuff that has to be dealt with to get to those. So I like that analogy of spiral dynamics. So the way I'm learning from studying divine truth is there are spheres of love that we all kind of exist within these spheres of love, and that's certain. If we abide by certain law, I mean, that sounds, people don't like that term in the sense of like abide by laws. Like, you shouldn't abide by it because it's a law. The laws are there to teach you love, basically, to teach us how to live in harmony with love. So that, like, there's like personal responsibility. You don't have a mansion with like 2 massive cars and loads of plastic every day. You're wasting it. It's like you live within your means so that you're not causing destruction to the earth. So there's certain ways of personal responsibility of love. And so most man and the natural love path, like Buddhism, most people live in kind of the first or second spheres of love. And you can call these like the hells. That's why we say hell on earth, is because people live within this. And that's, you know, to the mask where, I don't want to, you know, cuss the mask wearers, but someone that just goes to the shop every day, buys the junk food, comes home, watches is addicted to the sport on TV and their soap operas and all that stuff. And, you know, a lot of these people kind of are unaware of life and stuff beyond it, and living in their essential pleasures. And that's kind of the first sphere of love. And to say, for example, to live in the third sphere of love, an example Jesus gives if you watch the talks, is to live in the third sphere, you have to always live in truth. So speak the truth to someone. So you never tell a white lie. So if someone says, like if you've been out for the drinks with the lads and you come home to your wife and she knows, you know, she's going to be upset with you. You say, oh, I just went to the gym or something. You tell a white lie because you think it's like, no, you always tell the truth, no matter if that's going to upset someone, because in the long run, that's always loving. If someone says, do I look fat in this? Does this dress make me look fat? You tell them the truth of what you think rather than avoid it, because there's going to be consequences down the line, because in the long run, the truth is always going to bring about more harmonious with love. So that's one of the examples to be in the third sphere, is you live every moment telling the truth to people. Like, even to the police, if they ask you a question, you don't lie to try and avoid something. You just openly tell the truth. And often you'll notice when you do this in life, things actually, people or the universe respects that you're in truth, and will kind of, you'll feel more sovereign because you will be speaking the truth. Whatever the cost to anything else, you speak the truth. And so that's one level. And so he says up to 6 spheres is kind of the natural love path. And beyond the 6th sphere, you need, then is that relationship to God is to grow beyond that. But so that's the way this spiral dynamics came to me this year, and that fascinated me. And I think there's so much truth in that. And this was another way to look at it, is spheres of love. And as you say, as you grow in self-awareness, as you grow in personal responsibility, as you grow in a relationship to love and living in harmony with love and relationship to God and truth, you will feel like your soul is growing. is growing and expanding, and you can be more balanced. You can give more balanced perspectives to your friends and family when they ask you things, and that is what we're doing here. Is this soul? We're here for soul development, and that's part of how we do it.
Yeah, I think who is it? It might be Paul Check, actually. I know you went on Paul Check's podcast. He calls is it kindergarten? I think he calls it soul kindergarten or something. It's time to grow up and show up. Ken Wilber says it as well, and it's like, you know what? If we look at reality like that we're here to spiritually evolve ourselves, little things in the world that piss us off become far less important, don't they? It's like you look at the bigger picture and you go, how is this going to make me a more wholesome human being from this experience? And that's how I look at the world around us right now. I'll be honest, it completely repulses me when people are walking around the shops with masks on. I really struggle with it. I just want to rip them off. But
so that's on you. What is the emotion
in
you?
Man. Yeah, exactly. And it's a difficult process. As you say, it's a personal truth. What's in me that's creating that, man?
Yes, that's it.
So, yeah, I completely get that. How many spheres of love? Obviously, you've said 6 or 7 there. How many does he say there is? Or is it infinite?
So, no, it can be. I think it can be infinite, but there's up to 36 available at the moment. So the story is, to be super open, when Jesus was born in the first century, there was only 6. And as he came in with the awareness that God had opened up to 8 now, and so he came to teach man to help them get to 6 and then to 8. So, but now, since his death, he was in the spirit world. There was up to 22 and then up to 36. But so we are, you are one half of a soul, not a complete soul. And then your soulmate is the other half of a soul. And you have the same way you have a silver cord that connects your spirit body to your physical body. You have a pink cord or a rose cord that connects to your soulmate. But you don't know who your soulmate is until you have to deal with your own. We often have opposite gender traumas from men from our mothers and women from their fathers, from the way they treated them and the way we resisted to be treated that way, or we leaned into that way. And so then when we're with the opposite gender, that's why often people attract the same partner over and over until they deal with that emotional opposite gender trauma. And what happens is when you deal with the opposite gender injuries that we have and carry around, then you start to, law of attraction, draw in your soulmate. So that's why you may have, I've got some friends who I think you two are perfect, you two are soulmates. And other couples where I'm like, you're not lasting long, like why are you two together? And you can see when people are fitting each other's addictions and they're like helping each other's emotional addictions, and when they're actually just a good couple. And so that's why it's this personal truth to help us. If you deal with your own stuff, you can start to then draw in your soulmate. And for me, that I never believed in soulmate for many years and years. It never made sense to me. I explored polygamy, polyamory and all that, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. A marriage, you put a ring on the finger and you're forced to be with this person. I was like, surely God's made a way, and that's a simple way. When he designed a complete soul and then split us into 2, and this isn't just homosexuality in from male and female can still exist. A soul has kind of a spectrum of masculine and feminine, and if it's really feminine and it splits, and then it goes to 2 female bodies. So you can still have, it still explains that within that sense. Right, so he says up to the 22nd sphere is when you form a soul union. So I think around 5 or 6 you can start to find your soulmate. You can find them earlier, but then you might resist each other because you might have met your soulmate, but because of your injuries you pushed each other away, and then you kind of revisit later in life maybe. And from the 22nd sphere you form a soul union where you and your soulmate kind of form this union, and then that's how you go beyond that. But that's kind of the much deeper esoteric stuff. But I just find it's so fascinating when I'm watching this stuff. Yeah,
I'm always wary with things like that because my ego loves them. It's like, you're learning stuff, man. Really learning this. And it's like, yeah, but how true is it? So I'm not dismissing it by any stretch of the imagination. I'm more open-minded than probably 99.9% of people.
Yeah.
But my ego, like, attaches itself to like new ideas and books. I mean, I read probably a book a week easy, just because I want knowledge and I want information and I want all this. And I know it ain't going to fill what you mentioned earlier. I know it's not going to scratch that itch.
Yeah. So with this stuff, because I've been searching, like you read, I've got the Bhagavad Gita and all these. I'm like questioning what's. You've, through all that practice you've done, you've developed a good discernment for stuff that you should explore further and stuff that is like maybe not worth your time. All I will say to you is have a look at this stuff, experiment with anything. There's no catch, there's no ego in it. Like when you watch it, it's very pure. It's something a child can understand. It's not asking for money. It's not trying to. There's something in it that's when it says divine truth. That makes the most sense to me. That's the greatest description. Yeah. It's different from the other things that that we're researching at the moment. And I really think more truth seekers, now is the time that we're going to be ready and start to explore this more. Because what the stuff I'm sharing is some of the fringe stuff, but the fundamental truths that you will see when you dig into that content is you'll feel like something in you, like, oh my, like this is the knowledge that this is the next level of knowledge that I've been after.
Nice. Yeah, okay. I'll put the website. Is it they're on YouTube? You say I'll put it in on
YouTube. Divine Truth on YouTube. Yeah, and there's one video on their main YouTube that says Overview Secrets of the Universe, and just start with that one.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I'll put that in the show notes. We've been over an hour, mate. Do you want to wrap this up with anything that you've got going on? Anything you're selling?
Yeah, or? Yeah. So, well, for those that don't know me from this, I discovered a really nice tool. Have you seen me play with the rope yet?
I have.
You seen that stuff? Yeah. So I call it a divine tool. It's essentially people think it's like a skipping rope, except you don't jump the rope. When you have a skipping rope, it's high impact. You're heavy. You're sweating. You're jumping up and down. This is a slightly weighted rope. It's a bit quality rope, and you swing the rope. We call it rolling rope, and there are patterns of movement that the rope teaches your body to move with coordination. It connects your left and your right side of your body through the rope. It connects your upper body and your lower body, because as opposed to skipping, when you jump a skipping rope, you tuck your legs up as you push your arms down. So you're up, so you're compressing. Whereas when we roll rope, we extend with the legs as we extend the upper body up. So it's really nice activity for strengthening the spine, for getting the spine more mobile, for getting all the joints, because when you're rolling rope, all the joints move on a kind of infinity symbol path. There's this like figure of 8 path that everything moves on. And so the spine's moving. It's kind of a yogic type tool. It bridges the gap for me between a meditation and yoga or something, and like a physical practice. So people do it before their sports to warm up. People do it as a workout in itself. You can do it for an hour. But I call it a divine tool. It seems so simple, but there's so much to be done with it that can benefit you. It's good after you eat for digestion. It gets massages all the organs. There's just something in it that I found really powerful. But yeah, it's hard for me to sum it up in a few minutes here, but I definitely say just go check it out. Check out the website, wayoftherope.co.uk. So that's wayoftherope.co.uk. And there's video on there kind of explaining why I roll rope, and it kind of sums it up a lot better than I can in this video. But I created a discount code there, SELFSOF20 for 20% off for anyone who's curious and wants to delve deeper into this stuff. But it's the most simple personal practice you can have in your garden. You can go out for a walk in nature, and I just take the rope and I'll find a nice vista and look out, and I'll just roll rope. And it just gets the blood flowing in a nice way. It balances your hemispheres of your brain, because your right hand is doing work on the left side, your left hand's doing work on the right side of your body as you're rolling. So it's getting the hemispheres all connected. It does a lot of things that I think, like I say, can't explain it all here, but if you're curious, check out wayoftherope.co.uk. Beautiful.
Okay, mate. Thanks for sharing that. I love talking to you, mate. I think we're vibing. We've got some things going on, man.
You seem like you're really in the. You've done a lot of digging, bro, and I really appreciate that. I respect anyone that's a true seeker that's gone as hard as you have.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, mate, and obviously the same goes for you as well. When I'm back in the UK, let's meet up, man. I'd love to meet you in person.
Where are you based in the UK when you're around?
Can you tell by my accent? I'm a black country man from Wolverhampton.
You are, yeah. That's not far. I'm from Derby, so yeah, not too far. I like Wolves.
Yeah, you're about the only one.
Yeah. Well, I went for a few vegan festivals in my time. I don't know if you ever went to them.
My mate runs one, so potentially, yeah.
He used to go to.
He did start the vegan festivals. He's now eating meat again, like a lot of them. But it happens, man. It happens.
Yeah, cool, man. Great to chat, and thank you to everyone that's listened to this with an open mind and open heart. I really appreciate your ears and mine.
Thank you, buddy. Cheers.
Peace, man.